Welcome to Lost Love Mystery, where every story unravels a secret. So, let's dive into another story. I stepped out of the car, taking in the breath, taking sight of the sprawling countryside estate. The grand manor stood tall, exuding an aura of wealth and old money that seemed to whisper secrets from the past. Lila, my wife, emerged beside me, her eyes shining with excitement at the prospect of her cousin Miles' upcoming wedding. "Can you believe we're here, Josh?" she exclaimed, her voice laced with anticipation. "It's been ages since we've been to a family gathering like this." I nodded, forcing a smile despite the unease that had settled in the pit of my stomach. There was an undercurrent of tension in the air, a peculiar energy that I couldn't quite pinpoint. "Yeah, it's going to be quite the event," I replied, slinging my bag over my shoulder. As we made our way towards the entrance, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Little did I know that the shadows of betrayal were already lurking, waiting to unravel the very fabric of our lives. The night enveloped the estate in its dark embrace, and I found myself in desperate need of a phone charger. Slipping out of the guest room, I wandered the dimly lit hallways, searching for Lila's familiar figure. As I approached Miles' room, the door creaked open, and Lila emerged, her face flushed and her expression one of sheer panic. She froze like a deer caught in headlights when she noticed me standing there. "Lila," I called out, my brow furrowing in confusion. That's when I saw them, the telltale marks on her neck, the unmistakable hickeys that sent a jolt of realization through my entire being. Confronting her, my voice trembled with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Lila's eyes widened, and she scrambled for an excuse, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Josh, it's not what you think." But I had seen enough. Without waiting for her explanation, I stormed towards the bathroom, my footsteps echoing in the silent corridor. Lila followed closely behind, her frantic attempts to cover the incriminating evidence only fueling my suspicions further. The tension in the bathroom was palpable as Lila and I faced off, our voices rising in a heated exchange. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, Miles appeared in the doorway, his presence casting an ominous shadow over the room. "Perhaps we should talk somewhere more private," he suggested, his tone calm yet laced with an undercurrent of warning. He suggested we talk about this in his room. On the way of his room, I reached into my pocket and hit the record button on my phone, determined to capture every word of the confession that was about to unfold. With trembling fingers, I slipped the device back into my shirt pocket, letting it capture the truth that would soon be laid bare. In panic, they noticed nothing. Miles and Lila exchanged a weighted glance, and then the words came tumbling out, each syllable like a dagger piercing my heart. They confessed to their incestuous affair, a sordid secret that had been brewing for over a year, even before our marriage. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet. "Please, Josh, you have to understand," Lila pleaded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We never meant for this to happen. It just happened." Miles chimed in, his voice filled with a twisted mix of regret and defiance. "We tried to end it, but when we're together, it's like an unstoppable force. We can't help ourselves." Their pleas for silence and promises that it would never happen again fell on deaf ears. I could barely process their words, my mind consumed by a maelstrom of emotions. Betrayal, anger, and heartbreak swirled within me, threatening to tear me apart from the inside out. Without uttering a word, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, the weight of their confession bearing down on my shoulders like an unbearable burden. As I stumbled back to the guest room, the only thought that echoed in my mind was the realization that my life, as I knew it, had been shattered beyond repair. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a somber glow over the room. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands, the weight of Lila and Miles' confession still crushing me from the inside out. With trembling fingers, I retrieved my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for: Martin Lawson, my old friend and a seasoned lawyer. The line rang once, twice, before his familiar voice greeted me. "Josh, what's going on? You sound rattled." I took a deep breath, steadying myself before unleashing the torrent of words that had been swirling in my mind. "Martin, I need your help. I found out something about Lila, something unimaginable." There was a brief pause on the other end. Before Martin responded, his tone solemn. "Tell me everything," and so I did. I poured out the sordid details of Lila and Miles' incestuous affair, the betrayal that had shattered my world into a million pieces. Martin listened intently, his sharp legal mind already worrying into action. "I'll catch the next train out there," he assured me. "We'll figure this out together, Josh. Just hang in there." Hanging up, I felt a glimmer of relief, knowing that I wouldn't have to face this nightmare alone. Martin's unwavering support was a lifeline. In the midst of the storm that was raging within me, as promised, Martin arrived at the local train station later that day. I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and determination. That's when I noticed the brake pedal was unresponsive, and the car creamed forward at an alarming speed. Acting on instinct, I slammed the emergency brake, bringing the vehicle to a screeching halt, just inches away from a collision. My heart raised as I assessed the situation, realizing that someone had tampered with the brakes, a deliberate act of sabotage, shaken but unharmed. I called Martin and explained the situation. He insisted on taking a taxi to meet me, and together we arranged for a tow truck to retrieve the damaged car. Martin arrived with the tow truck, his brow furrowed with concern. We watched in silence as the mechanic inspected the brake system, his skilled hands probing and testing every component. "Someone definitely tampered with these." The mechanic confirmed, his voice grave. "It's a miracle you're still in one piece." Martin nodded, his jaw set in a firm line, as he meticulously documented every detail. The realization that someone had intentionally put my life at risk sent a chill down my spine, and I couldn't help but suspect Lila or Miles' involvement. After the mechanic finished his examination, Martin and I retreated to a nearby diner, the weight of the situation bearing down on us like a suffocating blanket. "Josh, this is serious," Martin said, his eyes locking with mine. "If someone is willing to sabotage your vehicle, who knows what else they're capable of?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry as I recounted the confession I had recorded the previous night. Martin listened intently, his expression growing more somber with each passing moment. "We need to approach this carefully," he advised. "Gather more evidence, build a solid case. These people are clearly unhinged, and we can't underestimate their desperation." I nodded, my resolve hardening. Whatever it took, I would uncover the truth and bring Lila and Miles to justice for their betrayal. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of meticulous planning and strategic maneuvering. Martin and I pored over every detail, devising a plan to expose Lila and Miles' sordid affair at the perfect moment, when the entire family and their closest friends were gathered for the celebration. As the evening approached, a sense of dread and anticipation churned within me. I knew that once the truth was out, there would be no turning back. Lives would be shattered, reputations destroyed, and the fallout would be catastrophic. Yet I couldn't shake the desire for justice, the burning need to confront the deception that had torn my world asunder. Martin's steady presence at my side was a constant reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice low and steady. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. "As ready as I'll ever be." With determined strides, we made our way to the grand ballroom, where the celebration was taking place. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets pressing down upon us. The grand ballroom was alive with the hum of conversation, the air thick with anticipation. As the wedding celebration unfolded around us, I caught Martin's eye from across the room, and he gave me a subtle nod, silently reassuring me that he had my back. Taking a steadying breath, I excused myself from the small group I had been mingling with and made my way towards the guest rooms. My heart pounded in my chest as I dialed Martin's number, seeking the comfort of his presence. before the storm broke loose. "Josh, I'm on my way." His voice crackled through the line. Before I could respond, the door burst open and Miles barged in, his eyes wild and his demeanor unhinged. He slammed the door behind him, effectively trapping us both inside. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he snarled, his hands slipping into his jacket pocket. Time seemed to slow as he withdrew a sleek, black pistol, leveling it directly at me. My throat went dry, and a wave of fear washed over me. But I refused to let it show. "I know what you and Lila have been up to," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I have it all recorded." Miles' face contorted into a mask of rage, his knuckles white as he gripped the gun tighter. "You're going to keep your mouth shut, or I swear to God, I'll end you right here." The sound of Martin's voice on the other end of the line jolted me back to reality. Josh, what's happening?" Without missing a beat, Martin must have heard the commotion, for he quickly added, "I'm calling the police." Miles' eyes widened as he realized the gravity of the situation, and in that split second, he lunged towards me, the gun raised. Acting on pure instinct, I dodged his attack, and we collided in a tangle of limbs and fury. The gun clattered to the floor as we grappled, each of us fighting for dominance. Despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins, fear threatened to overwhelm me. This was a man capable of unspeakable acts, and he was determined to silence me at any cost. Summoning every ounce of strength I possessed, I managed to gain the upper hand, pinning Miles to the ground. His face was contorted in a mask of rage, his eyes burning with a primal fury. "You'll regret this, Josh," he spat, his words laced with venom. Without hesitation, I grabbed the gun from the floor and pointed it at him, my hands trembling. "Not as much as you'll regret what you've done." With a swift motion, I locked the door, trapping Miles inside the room. He pounded on the door, hurling curses and threats, but I knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities arrived. The main hall was a cacophony of voices and confusion. As I burst through the doors, Martin close on my heels, all eyes turned towards us, and a hush fell over the crowd as they took in our disheveled appearance and the gun clutched in my hand. "Everyone, please, listen to me," I called out, my voice resonating through the sudden silence. Lila's eyes widened in horror as she realized what was about to unfold. She took a tentative step forward, her hands outstretched in a pleading gesture. "Josh, please, don't do this," she begged, her voice trembling, but it was too late for pleas and excuses. With a steely resolve, I pulled out my phone and hit play, allowing the damning recording of their confession to fill the room. The reaction was instantaneous. Gasps of shock and disbelief rippled through the crowd as the sordid details of Lila and Miles' affair were laid bare. I watched as the color drained from their faces, their once proud facades crumbling under the weight of their own deceit. As the recording ended, I lifted my shirt, revealing the bruises and cuts from my struggle with Miles. "He tried to kill me," I declared, my voice thick with emotion, all to keep this secret buried. The room erupted into chaos, with voices rising in a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Lila crumpled to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, her pleas for forgiveness falling on deaf ears. The piercing wail of sirens cut through the pandemonium, and moments later, a swarm of police officers burst through the doors, their presence commanding an immediate silence. With a grim expression, I handed over the gun and the recording, watching as Miles was led away in handcuffs, his head bowed in defeat. The wedding was called off, and the once joyous occasion was reduced to a scene of utter chaos and heartbreak. The aftermath of that fateful night was a blur of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. Armed with the evidence Martin had meticulously gathered, I filed for divorce, severing my ties with Lila once and for all. During the court proceedings, Martin's unwavering testimony proved pivotal. He confirmed that Lila had been the one to sabotage my car's brakes, further solidifying the case against her and Miles. In the end, the judge granted me a favorable settlement, and Lila and Miles faced the full weight of the law for their actions, including attempted murder charges. Their reputations were left in tatters, and they were ostracized by their families in the community that had once embraced them. As for me, the journey towards healing was long and arduous. The scars of betrayal ran deep, and there were moments when I felt consumed by the darkness of it all. But through the unwavering support of friends like Martin, I found the strength to pick up the pieces and move forward. The memories of that fateful night would never truly fade. I knew that I had survived the storm and emerged stronger than ever before. With a newfound determination, I embraced the road ahead, leaving the shadows of betrayal behind and stepping into the light of a future free from the hidden scars of the past.